Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's special Halloween edition of Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 30th of October, 2023. On this Halloween Eve, we are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel, Odyssey channel, Rumble channel. That's three simultaneous streams. You can send through a super chat to support the program via the live link that I put into the live chat. It is 9 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, which is the neo-Nazi capital of Australia, even though Nazi gestures and Nazi symbols are now banned. There are still these brazen activists here. We saw two of them outside the Melbourne Victoria County Court on Friday, able to escape further jail time. This is what the mainstream media Channel 9, who I speak to on a regular basis, had as their report.
Good evening. First tonight, a pair of neo-Nazis have performed the offensive salute and praised Hitler outside the county court, moments after avoiding jail for attacking a group of hikers in a national park. The salute was only banned in Victoria last week and now carries a massive fine and 12 months in prison.
They arrived with confidence.
Guys, do you have anything to say before your sentence today?
No, we'll do the comments afterwards.
Thomas Sewell and Jacob Hersant were facing a sentencing hearing over a violent attack in the Cathedral Rangers. Violence broke out after a group of hikers spotted the neo-Nazis and started filming them. Sewell was sentenced to 1 month and 7 days behind bars, Hersant to 3 days imprisonment and an 18-month community corrections order, but they walked free with time already served. Judge Kellie Blair said their offending was at the lower end of the spectrum, despite the court being told one victim had urinated in fear. Your offending was not planned. There was an absence of any animosity. It was spontaneous. Neither of you wore face coverings. Neither of you had a weapon. Neither of you instigated the offending or engaged in any specific act of violence. The judge said she did not consider the offending to be directly or casually related to their political views, which were on full display outside court shortly after.
We advocate for white Australia, and that's why they want to lock us up for good.
The men brandished their Nazi support just a week after the gesture was banned in Victoria.
Oh, nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
The men were spared lengthy prison sentences not only because of their guilty pleas, but because the judge deemed them to be young fathers with the support of their families and have limited experience with the justice system. But that has
It felt like they had put a stake through my heart. I've had to take out my teeth now. I don't think I could do the rest of the show with it. I might take a sip of my drink here. And please tell me when you want me to stop speaking like this. So you heard the Channel 10 report there where it mentioned that one of the hikers, he urinated in fear. So that was Channel 10. And so they blurred the or attempted Nazi salute that Jacob Hersant made. It didn't go full all the way up. he said, "Oh, I can't do it anymore. It's illegal now." But they also bleeped out when Jacob said "Hail Hitler," though that's not illegal in public yet. So that was Channel 10. So this was Channel 9, and obviously Thomas Sewell has a history of Channel 9 because he was found guilty and convicted back in January this year of recklessly causing injury and affray in relation to the incident outside Channel 9 Melbourne with that Caribbean concierge. So he was given an 18-month corrections order in relation to that and 150 hours community service. So that happened in February 2021. Then on May 2021, that's when Thomas Sewell and Jacob Hersant were charged with armed robbery over this incident with the hikers. So Channel 9 went in the hardest against Tom and Jacob in their initial Friday night report because they were sentenced at the county court on Friday afternoon, Melbourne time. So this was their report here.
Good evening. Two prominent neo-Nazis have made a mockery of Victoria's justice system, spouting their vile views on the steps of the county court moments after avoiding more jail time. Thomas Sewell and his offsider launched a violent attack on hikers in the Cathedral Rangers. Court reporter Amber Johnston.
After being given the gift of freedom, this gesture outside court almost sent him back in.
Hail Hitler. Oh, I nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
No apology, no remorse. Instead, Thomas Sewell and Jacob Hersant put their vile views on show.
Australia for the white man. Hail Hitler.
The men were spared further jail time after admitting to a vicious attack on a group of hikers at Cathedral Range State Park in 2021. But outside court, they tried to claim they were the victims.
What public Let me finish, you small, strange man.
The men and around 20 others went to the park to stage a photo similar to this, when a group of hikers noticed they were wearing T-shirts with Celtic Cross logos. When they got back to their car, they Googled neo-Nazis and the logo came up, deciding to take a video of the group. The men surrounded the car, some wearing balaclavas, and began to kick and punch the vehicle, smashing the windows. The group inside yelling, "Go, go, go" to the driver, noticing one of the men was carrying a knife. Judge Blair deciding, "I don't consider the offending directly or casually related to your political views." The judge went on to say there was nothing to show the attack was racially motivated. That's despite the men making disgusting remarks outside court about their neo-Nazi views. Sewell now has 2 violent convictions against his name after this attack on a Channel 9 security guard. He was spared jail over that assault, out on bail when he committed this latest one.
Hail Hitler.
Amber Johnston, 9 News.
So that was Channel 9. Let's check over with Channel 7, who have proven themselves to be the most objective when it comes to reporting on National Socialist matters.
Victoria's new Nazi laws are facing their first test. Jade Vincent has the latest, and Jade, police are promising zero tolerance.
2 neo-Nazis are free men tonight, despite pleading guilty to a violent attack on a group of bushwalkers in Victoria's high country. The judge said both had good prospects of rehabilitation, just minutes before they praised Hitler and mocked Victoria's new anti-Nazi laws.
Neo-Nazis walking free from court, convicted of one crime, almost committing another.
Hail Hitler. Hail Hitler. Oh, I nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
Mocking Victoria's new laws banning the offensive gesture. Thomas Sewell and Jacob Hersant, leaders of white supremacist group the National Socialist Network, were both sentenced to time already served over a terrifying attack on a group of hikers at the Cathedral Rangers in 2021. The 6 holidaymakers passed the men and a group of their followers wearing T-shirts with a neo-Nazi symbol along the trail and tried to film them once inside their car. Up to 15 men surrounded the vehicle, kicking, punching and smashing windows, one brandishing a knife. Police say Sewell reached inside the car and Hersant turned the engine off to stop the petrified hikers getting away. Despite pleading guilty, the men claim they are the victims.
There are two sides to every story. These people didn't just film us, they attacked our vehicles. We couldn't get the evidence that exonerate us.
The sentencing judge deemed the offending less serious because the attack was unplanned. The men weren't armed with weapons or wearing balaclavas, finding they both have good prospects of rehabilitation. Sewell was already on bail for viciously assaulting a security guard.
If you use violence and intimidation against us, we will defend ourselves within what we perceive to be the realms of the law.
Jade Vincent, 7 News.
Brucey says, still haven't heard Tom's side of the story. Well, I played you what the mainstream media said on Friday evening. I watched it so you don't have to. And now, Tom and Jacob's full remarks to the assembled mainstream media outside of the county court weren't broadcast. They went for about 7 minutes. The reason I couldn't go is because I had a dentist appointment, getting these ready. But the full Thomas Sewell and Jacob Hersant's full remarks to the media were filmed by fellow NSN member Nathan Bull. Also behind Tom and Jacob, you can see Jimo and Roberts, aka the Vanilla Gorilla, and also the younger one with the blonde hair is Ethan Hendren. So I will play you 2 bits that the mainstream media didn't put to air. So this is who Thomas Sewell alleged that these weren't some random hikers who suddenly started filming them when they found out what the Celtic cross was.
Is it reasonable to stick a knife in somebody's face?
That never happened. Absolutely not. Never happened. Absolutely not. That's a lie. That's a fact. These hostile Jewish communist witnesses. Okay? Gay Jewish communist witnesses. There's no way these gay Jewish communists are going to be reasonable. They're going to exacerbate, and they're anti-fascists. So they've got a political motivation to make false accusations.
Sorry, that's not Nathan Bull's angle. He published they published his full footage, the 7-minute one, which I think is on Thomas Sewell's Telegram. That was filmed by another NSN member I don't know the name of. And so they were asked, why did you plead guilty? I mean, you pled guilty. You must be guilty of something. And this was Thomas's reply.
It's unfortunate that we couldn't go to trial because Channel 9, along with the terror police, organised something called public interest immunity. So what public interest immunity...
You pleaded guilty.
What public...
You could have gone to trial.
Let me finish, you small, strange man. What public interest immunity is the state has decided that it's not in the public's interest that we receive all the evidence. So we requested the filming that the terror police did of the incident, which exonerates us from these crimes they've alleged. Jacob and myself did not commit the crimes that they alleged, and the footage exonerates us. We weren't given access to the footage on the basis that it's not in the public's interest. Now, we received this hearing at the county court over a year ago, where a judge watched the footage, watched everything that the terror police, when they were stalking us and following us, had. The judge watched it, said it was in the defence's favour, but said that it was injurious to the public's perception of the state. His exact words were, it was injurious to the public's perception of the state, and he would not release that footage despite the fact that it was helping the defence. So we could not go to trial. Now, we were facing 15 years in jail for something that we didn't do, and we couldn't get the evidence that exonerated us. So risking going to trial risks putting us as young guys in jail for up to 15 years. So we took a deal that would only put us in jail for maybe a month. Now, I already served 6 months of that in solitary confinement during COVID when they were locking up political dissidents. Okay, and I met a lot of political dissidents while I was in jail, and they were all there, overcharged, upcharged, because they were all organising against the COVID mandates and the illegal actions of the Daniel Andrews government. So they were locking up political dissidents left, right and centre, and because of that, we had to make the decisions that we made.
regardless of your views on Thomas Sewell, and obviously I'm not a National Socialist, I'm a libertarian, Tom spoke really well in front of a hostile media, setting out his version of events, and obviously they wanted to interrupt him constantly to say, what about this, what about that? And I summarized the 2.5 years court processes of this in my article on the unshackled.net, Media Mistruths about Nazi hiker case. And it should be mentioned that a person that was with them earlier in the day at the Cathedral Range State Park where the incident occurred was the paid-for Channel 9 infiltrator who went by the name of Dave Ryan, whose hidden camera footage featured in Nick Mackenzie's 2-part Nazis Next Door episode series. And then, of course, it was made into a STAD documentary. It was called something else, Nazis in the Suburbs or something. And also in Tom's full unedited footage, Sewell said that he and his fellow activists had always been respectful to members of the public, but would respond to violence and intimidation against them in what they believe is within the realms of the law. Sewell believes his group's members behave honorably at all times and are a law-abiding organisation and are looking for political change in Australia and not petty violence to harm or hurt anyone. And now, because Sewell spent 7 months on remand, basically in solitary confinement at the Charlotte unit of the Port Phillip prison, where he was housed with the worst of the worst murderers and terrorists. So that had a 23-hour daily lockdown. Inmates were only allowed 1 hour outside of their cell in a cage. So he was given time served. So Judge Kellie Blair agreed that Sewell's isolation was punishment enough and that he received time served of 1 month for the violent disorder charge and 7 days for the breach of bail. So Jacob Hersant, so he has now 2 prior I'm not sure if they're convictions, but 2 priors for stickering Nazi propaganda in Melbourne. He received a 2-year corrections order with 200 hours of unpaid community work. And now, even though Tom Sewell's chapter in this is over, Jacob Hersant, because of that, what you call attempted Nazi salute, it looks like he almost forgot because it's a natural thing for him that he forgot that it was illegal. So the Summary Offences Amendment, Nazi Salute Prohibitions Bill, has come into effect, which makes any symbols or gestures associated with the National Socialist German Workers' Party illegal and punishable by up to a year in prison and a $23,000 fine. So the mainstream media got a extra night's worth of stories quoting Victoria Police, their vow to investigate Jacob. So we will start with Channel 9 first.
Victoria's legal system is being urged to throw the full force of the law at a neo-Nazi. He's under investigation after performing a reviled salute outside court a week after it was made illegal. State political reporter Mark Santomartino.
Guilty but spared jail for violent disorder, a known neo-Nazi commits another crime seconds after leaving court.
Hail Hitler. Oh, I nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
It was made illegal last weekend after high-profile incidents outside Flinders Street, on trains and on the steps of Parliament. Advocates saying Victoria must make an example of men like Jacob Hersant.
Australia for the white man. Hail Hitler.
These unrepentant neo-Nazis and white supremacists are testing us. And Victoria Police has to send a loud and strong message.
A statement from the force read, police will be taking a zero-tolerance approach to any breach of the prohibition of performing Nazi salutes in public. We will locate and interview this person.
Our government has done its bit. We have banned the Nazi swastika and we have also banned the Nazi salute. So this is now a matter for the police.
Make an example of these individuals. They should be charged, they should be arrested.
There is no question in my mind. This was a Nazi salute.
Question is, will a judge see it the same way? These new laws have never been tested in the Victorian court system, but anyone found guilty will face fines of up to $23,000 or a year behind bars.
This Hitler worshipper knew exactly what he was doing and he was laughing in our faces, and he needs to pay the price.
The 24-year-old is yet to be arrested, interviewed or charged. Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
Now, I haven't heard any update whether Jacob has been interviewed by Victoria Police. Now, that was over on Channel 9. They spoke to yours truly, Dvir Abramovich. Over on Channel 7, they also got an extra night's story from it as well.
Victoria's new Nazi laws are facing their first test. Jade Vincent has the latest, and Jade, police are promising zero tolerance.
Mike, police have requested Seven's footage of a prominent neo-Nazi who appeared at the county court yesterday. Jacob Hersant avoided jail over an assault, but when speaking with media outside court, he raised his arm, mocking Victoria's new laws banning the Nazi salute. Hersant laughed it off, but last night police said they would be tracking him down and interviewing him. This is the first reported alleged breach of the new laws, which only came into effect a week ago.
Hail Hitler. Oh, I nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
Absolutely concerned, absolutely disgusted. These things and these absolutely offensive gestures have no place on the streets of Melbourne, which is the greatest example of multiculturalism in the world.
If anyone is found guilty of performing the illegal salute in public, they could face a fine of $23,000 or up to 12 months jail time. Mike?
Live at police headquarters, Jade Vincent, thank you.
And now Brucey says he barely even got his arm horizontal. Although not working in Jacob's defense is that he said, "Hail Hitler." That'll be the next thing to be made illegal, saying any phrase in public associated with the National Socialist German Workers' Party. I'm not sure if you could actually do that, make certain phrases illegal in public, though there is always the offensive language behavior charge. Over on the ABC, we actually got a double feature of both Dvir and another prominent, you would say, and far right expert.
Victoria's new laws banning the Nazi salute are being put to the test just 1 week after coming into effect. Police are investigating a prominent neo-Nazi after he allegedly performed the gesture on the steps of County Court yesterday.
Just minutes after being spared more jail time for an attack on 6 hikers, an unrepentant Thomas Sewell and Jacob Hersant wanted the last word.
Hail Hitler. Hail Hitler. Oh, I nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
Laws banning the Nazi salute in Victoria were fast-tracked by the state's parliament last week, meaning anyone who performs the offensive gesture now faces up to 12 months in prison or a $23,000 fine.
The definition's very clear. It's anything that resembles a salute.
This is about intent, and this bloke knew exactly what he was doing.
Hersant is the first person to be reported to police for allegedly breaching the laws since they came into effect, following a string of anti-Semitic incidents in Melbourne.
These unapologetic neo-Nazis are testing the new ban.
He and Sewell pleaded guilty to a 2021 attack when a group of up to 25 far-right extremists surrounded hikers and attacked their car in regional Victoria. Yesterday, a judge found the pair had good prospects for rehabilitation.
They thumbed their nose at the law, and it's unacceptable. There needs to be consequences.
If this individual does not get charged, it will send the message that the law has no value.
Our government has done its bit. We have banned the Nazi swastika and we have also banned the Nazi salute. So this is now a matter for the police.
Police say they'll be taking a zero-tolerance approach to people who breach Victoria's Nazi salute laws. But some say yesterday's incident raises questions about whether the legislation should go further and ban far-right hate speech.
It's taking away a weapon in their arsenal.
This movement is dangerous. These are ticking time bombs, and we have to make sure that this evolving threat is taken seriously.
The salute is also banned in Tasmania and New South Wales. Leanne Wong, ABC News, Melbourne.
They are a ticking time bomb. Now, the other expert that you saw was Josh Roos. So he's works at the Deakin University Institute for Global Citizenship. And now that does a lot of when I say anti-fascist research, or research into the far right, I should say. Yeah, they're working at a university which is named after one of the chief architects of the White Australia policy, Alfred Deakin. Now, Josh Roos, he is correct that in section 6, subsection C of the Summary Offences Amendment, a Nazi gesture means a gesture that so nearly resembles a gesture referred to in paragraphs A or B that is likely to be confused with or mistaken for that gesture. And obviously Jacob saying Hail Hitler, certainly I'm sure that a case against him will be attempted. Now I saw Brucey up here also say that, would this law survive a high court challenge? Well, somebody has to obviously be convicted of it, and then it has to go through all the appeals process, which costs lots and lots of money. So Blair Cottrell, he only got as far as the county court to appeal his conviction under the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act of Victoria for doing that mock beheading of that dummy in Bendigo in 2015. Now, before I finish my coverage on this story, I will just finish off some of the mistruths that have been put out there by both the media and both leftists and conservatives on social media. So there's been a deliberate misinterpretation of Judge Kellie Blair's sentencing remarks, that she said that Sewell and Hersant's prospects for rehabilitation were good. She was not referring to them being rehabilitated from their Nazi ideology, as that's not what they were being sentenced for. I mean, there could be in the future, the Victorian Parliament could pass an act which makes being a Nazi an aggravated factor, where you get an additional sentence if you're convicted of a crime. Don't put it past them. So what Judge Kellie Blair was referring to, that their prospects for not committing violent disorder again were good. And Tom Sewell's comments outside the court said that, well, we don't do violence for violence sake. We only respond when we're being attacked. And also, ever since Thomas Sewell and the NSN turned up to the Melbourne Let Women Speak event in March, there's been conservatives who've alleged that the NSN are paid actors by Victoria Police used to discredit conservatives. But this theory, of course, leaves out the fact that Sewell spent 7 months on remand in solitary confinement, and Jacob Hersant for 2.5 years wasn't allowed to associate with Sewell or any other members of the National Socialist Network or the European Australian Movement. And plus, neither of them snitched on any other members at the incident. The reason that Sewell and Hersant were charged, because they were identified, because they weren't wearing face coverings, and also Sewell's blood and Hersant's DNA was found on the car. And I wonder how it came out that one of the hikers urinated on themselves. When they were making a statement to the police, did they notice a wet patch on their pants? Or was there a wet patch on the car seat where they pissed their pants? I mean, it'd be quite extraordinary if they volunteered that information, as a way to make sure that they could say that they were frightened as possible. Yeah, I was so scared that I pissed my pants. So that is the latest there. Now, let's stay in Victoria, where our female Premier, Jacinta Allan, all of a sudden, the left knows what a woman is again, because it's apparently not okay to make a cartoon mocking a female leader if she accuses it of sexualizing her. So this was Mark Knight's cartoon in the Herald Sun. It was Fashion Week in Melbourne. So the text says, from the Commonwealth Games cancellation collection, the Premier's new clothes. And it has Jacinta Allan coming out in the catwalk naked as a reference to the Emperor's new clothes, naked, because, well, there's nowhere for her to hide over regarding she was the Commonwealth Games minister. She's getting out of this inquiry, and she was spruiking that it could be funded, the event, when it was clear that they were trying to get out of it. So apparently this was sexualizing her, even though Mark Knight, back in 2021, he drew Dan Andrews as the Nirvana baby, but with the bit blurred out, because the Nirvana baby was suing the estate, and it has Dan Andrews chasing zero COVID cases. And then he also drew Tony Abbott naked as well, because remember, Tony Abbott got fined for not wearing a face mask outside. And so there's this Karen snitching on Tony Abbott. Officer, that's Tony Abbott, and he's not wearing a face mask. And so Tony Abbott rips his budgie smuggler off and puts it on his face, and there's a COVID fine that's covering his crutch there. And then the Karen faints there. But apparently there is a double standard. It is inappropriate to draw a female politician naked, but it's okay to draw a male politician naked. And again, all of a sudden, the left, they know the difference between a man and a woman. It wasn't a good week last week for, or not just the Premier, Jacinta Allan, but the Treasurer, Tim Pallas, aka Uncle Fester. His electric vehicle tax was thrown out of the High Court in a 4-3 decision. He justified this tax on EVs because they don't need petrol, and so therefore the petrol excise is not being collected, because basically a lot of your petrol is the reason why your petrol is so high at the moment, well, it's always a lot higher than it would be on the market, is because of the petrol excise, which supposedly goes to fund our roads, even though it just goes into consolidated revenue. So the High Court ruled that under the Constitution, Australia's Constitution, the state governments do not have the authority to put a excise on a item. So it was thrown out by the High Court. So only the Commonwealth government can put a national electric vehicle tax. Now, we had last week, we remember Dan Andrews, he kicked Will Fowles out of the Labor Partyroom. So he was arrested and interviewed by Victoria Police's Sexual Crimes Squad after a government employee made serious allegations against him back in August. Fowles has strenuously denied any wrongdoing. He has been released without charge. So that is obviously going to be a continuing headache for Dan's successor. Obviously, Dan has gone to New York. And so we have the Mulgrave by-election that is occurring on November 18th. So Ian Cook of I Cook Foods is running as an independent again on an anti-corruption platform. Ironically, the Labor candidate is the city of Greater Dandenong mayor. That was the local government area that shut down I Cook Foods because their inspector found that slug there. And of course, that was in collusion with Brett Sutton, the chief health officer, who gave the order. Jacinta Allan, of course, she is government is full steam ahead with the proposed treaty with Indigenous Victorians who are elected to that gravy train known as the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. Now, I might have asked this question before. If a treaty is signed, then does that mean the First People's Assembly is dissolved because therefore we're at one again, or will the gravy train continue? But did you know that in the Victorian Department of Premier and Cabinet, there is this a Victoria First Peoples State Relations Unit, and they're in charge of enforcing Victoria's Aboriginal Heritage Act. And so they have been intimidating rock climbers in the Grampians, deterring them from climbing, claiming that they could be in violation of entering cultural heritage sites, and the fines are up to $346,000. That's way more than a COVID fine. Now, the thing is about these, what is the point of a cultural heritage site if you can't enjoy them? And how are they meant to be maintained if nobody is allowed in them? Apparently, these rock drawings in the Grampians, they're invisible to the naked eye, but they are there. But what this is really about is shutting off, locking up Australia to non-Aboriginals, so that we can't enjoy the great Australian outdoors. Remember the show, The Great Outdoors? It was hosted by an Aboriginal, Ernie Dingo. Remember? And he did the tourism ads. Go and see Australia. Well, you can't now because I went through last week. Almost half of Australia around about is locked up in native title with non-Aboriginal Australians not allowed in. And of course, they are governed by these land councils in a communist system where they're not allowed to own property, the Aboriginals, and all the royalties go to the land councils. Exactly, Lady of Shalott, just like they locked away Ayers Rock. I refuse to call it Uluru. And this is the thing now. There's two names for everything now. They give everything an Indigenous name now, because what is it? Melbourne is NAM now. The Melbourne Football Club during the Indigenous round changed their name to NAM. And in New South Wales, even though the new Premier Chris Minns, he has deferred negotiating a treaty with Indigenous people in New South Wales until after the 2027 state election. He has decided to name the new Metro Pitt Street station Gadigal Station in honour of the traditional custodians, owners, whatever the term they use. And of course, how are people supposed to know where Gadigal Station is, which supposedly all of Sydney is Gadigal country? I mean, a lot of people on social media say it'll always be Pitt Street to me, which of course people saying, oh, you're racist for not wanting it Gadigal country. But the thing is, when people say it's Gadigal country, what is meant in that is that they're signaling that they believe the Black Sovereign Movement motto, that it was always will, always was, always will be Aboriginal land sovereignty, was never ceded. So they don't recognise that Pitt Street even exists. It's all Gadigal country, according to them. And it's not enough. All of the current arrangement for protecting alleged Aboriginal heritage. So the Victorian Aboriginal Heritage Council, they want the power to enter private property farms without a warrant. So they could basically, if they wanted to, come to your private home, my private home, and say, we want to make sure that you're not damaging any Aboriginal cultural heritage that might be on your property. Email says we should call it the Ayers Rock Statement from the Heart. It's basically the Ayers Rock demand. I mean, it was only signed by 250 people, but remember, according to Anthony Albanese, it is what all Indigenous Australians want. And remember, he said, I did the referendum, wasted 450 million because it's what Indigenous Australians asked me to do. But of course, it's mask off now for those behind the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Remember that statement by the Aboriginals who supported the Voice referendum, saying that the majority of Australians committed a shameful act. And we saw last week on ABC Radio National on Patricia Karvelas's program, Thomas Mayo spoke the need to regulate social media now, which obviously the Albanese government's got the mis and disinformation ready to go.
And it was difficult because we were running an honest campaign. The Yes campaign always tends to have to talk about what the actual change is, whereas the No campaign could talk about anything, and they did. They talked about anything other than what the actual alteration to the Constitution was. They had fear mongering. There's reports, numerous analysis of how they sponsored multiple social media accounts that had contradictory messages, and I think the media really struggled and failed somewhat to expose all of that in a way that got through to Australians. Now, there's bigger issues to that. How do you regulate social media? I think that's something that needs to be looked at into the future. And I'm not an expert on it, so I just know that it really damaged this campaign.
DML says someone should make a browser plugin that translate the new place names back to their proper names. Well, there's been a lot. There's a campaign here in Melbourne to rename a lot of places named after the founder of Melbourne, John Batman, and he actually negotiated a agreement with the local Indigenous people to acquire Melbourne. There was talk that Victoria or Melbourne could be named Batmania, but he is now cancelled because of his alleged role in the Tasmanian genocide of Indigenous people, which Keith Windshuttle has disputed occurred in, I think it's the Fabrication of Aboriginal History, Volume 1, already the federal seat of Batman, which is held by Labor's Jed Carney, which is a Labor Greens contest. The seat of Batman has now been named Cooper after an Indigenous Australian. So that electorate, to me, I think it should still be called Batman. Now, we also saw on Q&A last Monday night, also hosted by Patricia Karvelas, the most pro-voice presenter at the ABC, Larissa Baldwin-Roberts. She's the new Get Up CEO. She is a First Nations woman, although I'm not sure if she identifies as a woman, because remember that Tarneen Onus Brown, who used to be Tarneen Onus Williams, now uses they, them pronouns, and so does that Aboriginal who was on the Hack Live panel with Blair Cottrell, even though they gave birth recently. So I don't know what they identify, but this is what they said on Q&A last week about, well, reconciliation being over and what needs to happen next.
How do we move forward? People asking about reconciliation. Personally, I think reconciliation is over. It's time for a reckoning. We cannot have reconciliation with people who do not say that we exist in this country, who are not talking about the truth of what has happened. I just don't know where we go from here. And I think truth-telling is one way, but it also still feels like an olive branch that is being extended from our communities to the broader Australian public. Some of the lies that were perpetrated throughout the referendum, from things around cultural heritage and farmers talking about not needing to know how to build a fence and that sort of stuff, and the idea that this would mean more substantive rights. The truth-telling that needs to happen here, we need to see substantive rights in this country. We need to make sure that First Nations people have the same access to health, housing and education as everybody else. No one is going after regional communities, no one's going after the funding for seniors or disabilities. But right now we are seeing attack after attack in the week after the referendum on our communities. And truth-telling is one part, but also it is showing up as Australian voters that are willing to say, who are we going to be as a country and what is my role in this? Because if you're not going to vote in our favour, I just don't understand how we get any political power here. And we need to be able to choose our own representatives like everybody else here.
You've been attacking us. I mean, most Australians have moved on. Obviously, that was a narrative that was put forward that it was a vote against Indigenous Australians, which it was not. But I do agree with her that reconciliation should be over because the whole reconciliation movement, it's designed to never end. There's always supposed to be grievances that hinder the ultimate coming together, and obviously the gap being closed. That is also seen as another prerequisite of reconciliation, though it is more. It is more to do with the differences in how remote communities are governed than the rest of Australia. That's why there is this gap. And also, I agree about truth-telling, but obviously the truth that needs to be told, and that Jacinta Price said at the National Press Club, is that it is Aboriginal traditional culture that is the problem, the cause of all the dysfunction, violence, and sexual abuse in remote Indigenous communities, not what the white man has done. So they don't want to hear about that type of truth there. Now, there were also reports last week that Anthony Albanese might make Linda Burney, his Indigenous Australians minister, the Governor General, Australia's first Indigenous Governor General. I mean, even though she is one of the worst performers in that government and was a liability for the Yes campaign. I mean, she couldn't answer questions in Parliament. She just read a pre-prepared statement. So the Labor Party, though, they like to allow people to fail up. I mean, Christina Keneally failed up from New South Wales Premier to a senator, and they wanted to fail up to the lower house in the seat of Fowler, but the voters of Fowler had a different wanted a different member, and they voted for Di Lee. We also had Shane Howard, the lead singer of Goanna, hand back his Order of Australia medal, saying he can no longer be proud of his country. And I'm not sure if you are familiar with some of Goanna's songs. Most famous song is Solid Rock, which is not actually about rock and roll. It's about airs rock, and it's the line is you're sitting on a sacred ground. So it's a Aboriginal land rights song. So he got an OAM for mentoring Indigenous musicians. I don't think that Peter Grace got a Order of Australia medal for mentoring Indigenous musicians. I think he just got a participation trophy from 3KND when he was fired from volunteering for them. And Pete Osman says Goanna were even more lefty than Midnight Oil back in the day. Yeah, all their music was political, basically. Now, the ABC, obviously, they were so incredibly biased during the Voice referendum, but they had another terrible week last week where they were in the federal court. They were found to have defamed Afghan war veteran Heston Russell. A report by Mark Willesee and Josh Robertson accused him of war crimes in Afghanistan. And so Heston Russell was awarded $390,000 in damages, which comes to over $400,000 in damages plus interest. The federal court ruled that the journalist had no defense. Now, costs haven't been awarded, but of course they're the ABC. They, rather than admit they were wrong and that they misinterpreted what their US source had told them to make Heston Russell appear to make him look bad. So that US serviceman who was their source for the story actually apologized to Heston Russell, saying, I had no idea the ABC would use my comments in that way. And so it's good that Heston Russell has won. He is, of course, the founder of Voice of a Veteran, and also was the founder of the Australian Values Party. This was him outside the federal court last week. I think I've got the statement here.
This Saturday is the anniversary of the death of Corporal Scott Smith, who was the one soldier that I lost in Afghanistan. On the 21st of October 2020, the ABC chose to release their Marine Herder Pop story on the anniversary of Scott's death. That week, my grandfather, who fought on the hook in Korea and again in Vietnam, called me and simply said, don't let them do to your soldiers what they did to mine when we came back from Vietnam. Today's judgment today is partway through holding that oath. And I'll have a hell of a lot more to say, but what I will say is the part that has hurt the absolute most on this 3 years of editorial complaints to the ABC, petitions to our government and to our ministers, and lobbying our elected officials and leaders in Canberra, including those of the Defence Force, has been standing here on my own as a private citizen, having to take legal matters against the ABC without any support from the Department of Defence, even when the ABC published that these allegations were during a period when my platoon and I were not even in Afghanistan. It is time for the Australian public to stand up and help me hold the rest of that oath, because enough is enough. We will happily go overseas and fight for the freedoms that are so easily thrown about, freedom of press, freedom of speech. But when will the Australian public stand up and help us to hold the politicians and military leaders accountable? The cowards in Canberra who are too busy trying to take the honours and awards off our servicemen and women, while I'm standing here in a court of defamation trying to fight for the legacy of my soldiers, including one that I could not bring home. Now, my legal team is going to release an official statement. I'm going to have a lot more to say tomorrow morning on the show with Ben Fordham. But I just want to close again by thanking all those who stood behind me and supported me. Thank God I've had a platform to be able to speak out against the ABC and all their waves of attacks. And thank God I had a legal team who decided to take this on board at no win, no fee, because I could not afford justice in Australia without their support.
And you remember that Heston Russell, he launched his voice of a veteran after the throwing under the bus by the ADF and the Morrison government, when Linda Reynolds was the defence minister, throwing under the bus of our Afghan war veterans after the release of the Brereton report, which basically, in the process of releasing that report, smeared them all as complicit or in war crimes, and wanted to collectively take medals off them, which Peter Dutton, when he got the job as defence minister, he stop that. And the ABC, of course, they have an anti-Australian bias. They take everyone's side apart from Australia, and they probably thought in their arrogance, well, there's been other media that's gone after Ben Roberts-Smith. Why don't we attack a prominent Afghan war veteran as well? And even though Heston Russell, he hasn't got any apology, contrition from the ABC. They were just because, well, the ABC is not paying the bill. They haven't been fired, the journalists. And remember, the ABC, they didn't fire, or in fact, they paid all the legal expenses of Louise Milligan, who defamed former Liberal MP Andrew Lemming when she accused him of upskirting. So Louise Milligan, she's still producing reports for ABC Four Corners, even though she said it on her private Twitter account. The ABC still covered her legal bills. So we've got Anthony Albanese. He just stopped in yesterday in Sydney for another photo op at the Italian festival in his electorate, because remember, Anthony Albanese is the most Italian prime minister that we've ever had. Remember that he tried to play the race card, saying that it was, they were trying to, the Liberals were having a go at his Italian name with their slogan, "It won't be easy under Albanese." So he last week was at the White House state dinner with Joe Biden, and also lobbying for the lobbying congressmen and congresswomen to pass the AUKUS submarine deal through Congress. They can now because they've got a speaker. I'll get to that in a moment. And so he's back in Australia for a couple of days, and then he's off to the People's Republic of China to meet with Xi Jinping to kiss and make up since China. They gave back Cheng Lei to her family in Melbourne after holding her basically in solitary confinement for 3 years. It was good the Albanese government made that happen, though the Albanese government, they are not going to rescind the lease of the Port of Darwin to a CCP-linked company. And meanwhile, things at home continue to get worse. So we have inflation for the September quarter. It's 5.4% for the year, and it was 1.2% for the quarter, more than what was predicted. So it's likely that Michelle Bullock, the new Reserve Bank governor, will be very bullish when it comes to the Reserve Bank meeting next Tuesday on Melbourne Cup Day and raise interest rates because inflation is too out of control. Now, let's move on to the latest in the Israel-Hamas war, which in the Western world has basically turned into a Zionist Muslim, you would say, conflict for when I say conflict, I mean activist conflict. So obviously, we have now weekly in Melbourne and Sydney protests for Palestine. Now, the one in Melbourne is organised by the Antifa communists, but most of the people who attend are local Muslims. So there are 800,000 Muslims in Australia. There are 100,000 Jews, so Muslims outnumber Jews 8-1. And the Labor Party, of course, knows that demographics are destiny. They hold all of the Muslim populated seats in Western Sydney. That's why you had Ed Husick last week say that Israel is collectively punishing the residents of Gaza. And you had Tony Burke last week, also holds a Western Sydney seat. They're both Albanese cabinet ministers, defend the Canterbury Bankstown Council for flying the Palestinian flag outside of the council chambers. So in though the city of Melbourne went even further, flying about 10 Palestinian flags outside Federation Square. There was a vigil for Gaza last night, and Dvir Abramovich, he is also now going after the pro-Palestine activists. And even though Dvir spends most of his time attacking Antifa's mutual enemy, the Nazis, they don't like Dvir. And so this was Cass Ross, fat Cass Ross last week, retweeting Alex Fenn because for his smearing of Saint Greta Thunberg. So Alex Fenn says the Anti Defemation Commission Dvir Abramovich smearing the autism community. Thunberg's toys used by kids and adults with autism. Are my children anti-Semites? When he smears all people with autism, Nazis gleefully junk on the opportunity he's given them. And of course, Thomas Sewell showed that he had won. And Cass Ross said, Australian journos need to stop relying on Dvir for quotes. When I pointed out to Dvir that he was smearing Greta unfairly, she removed her original post as she found out it was being willfully misconceived. Dvir blocked me. I'm probably labelled anti-Semitic now. And also, Tom Tanuki had a go at Dvir for having a go at the Antifa fundraiser cafe, Cafe Gummo, over in Thornbury. So Tom Tanuki said, this is Dvir Abramovich of the Anti Defemation Commission, which is basically just him at a desk. Dvir doesn't, I'll just stop there for a moment, because Dvir, he's not paid for his role as chair of the Anti Defamation Commission. His day job is at Melbourne University as a senior lecturer of Hebrew studies in the Department of Historical and Philosophical Studies. When Dvir isn't facilitating competitions among Nazis to see whose abuse he'll share the most, or contacting media to insert himself into the NSN commentary, his recipe Cafe Gummo. Cafe Gummo were recently threatened by a gang of knife-wielding neo-Nazis. That's alleged. Cafe Gummo go broke trying to provide rad space for Melbourne activism. Well, I do hope they go broke. That'd be awesome. Cafe Gummo makes space for a plenary of activists with good politics, including anti-fascist, anti-racist, and yes, anti-Zionist. In the space of providing media commentary on neo-Nazis, Dvir has done nothing but demand that the government create endless new authoritarian laws to deal with neo-Nazis while sharing their vile abuse to social media for them. Now he's going to make like hard for real show. Go some love. Ignore this conservative Zionist who does endless Herald Sun spots for cheerleading for yet more laws. You'd think someone like this who just loves state oppression, deep down, his stance on legitimate protests against the oppression of Palestinians. And now, it is true that Dvir is easily baited by the white nationalists and national socialists. I remember it was at the beginning of 2021, he got very triggered when Thomas Sewell, a blood-sucking vampire, and one of Maddie Rose of Maddie's Modern Life and the XYZ, one of his final videos was Count Dvir's mission. Not to YouTube, it got taken down in record time. It's almost if Dvir had a direct line to the Alphabet Company and got them to, hey, shut it down. But I will provide the link to the BitChute video in the chat. Let me know if you can see it there. And also David Hiscock at the XYZ. He did several articles mocking Dvir. This was one of his poorly labelled satire. Proof that Dvir Abramovich is a compulsive masturbator. Dvir Abramovich, who is a Mossad spy who routinely stalks and harasses ordinary Australians who just want their country back on behalf of his native Transylvania. It so happens that the XYZ has gleaned exclusive footage of Count Dvir singing back in his home country, believed to be from sometime in the 1980s. As you can see from this video, he hasn't aged a day. I believe that Dvir's cousin from Transylvania is Dr. Frank Ferner, who that the sweet transvestite from the Rocky Horror show. Now, probably the biggest pro-Palestine rallies have been in Europe, with those in London probably having the raising the greatest eyebrows. So this was at Westminster Bridge in London. And there's an NHS sign there as well. I mean, got to blend all these causes together. Now, that, of course, was the happy footage that was put out by the pro-Palestine accounts. This is some of the violence that occurred in the rally. So this is some of the abuse that was dished out to white police officers. Now, I've seen Zionist conservatives say London has fallen, Britain has fallen, it is game over now. Who's been in power for the past 13 years and has allowed many of these people on the street to come to the UK both legally and illegally? It's the Conservative government. And apart from a couple of tough talks by David Cameron back in the day, and recently Sewell Abramovich about multiculturalism, they all support multiculturalism, and of course they prosecute those who have been who criticize immigrants through those various public order and race and religious hate offenses. Like, I'm at the point now where I just think this is funny. This is not a tragedy anymore. This is a comedy. Knock, knock. Who's there? You've imported all these people who hate your country and your values. Your country's dying. Oh, blah, blah. Yes, you think that's funny. I do. And I'm tired that's pretending that it's not. How about another joke? What do you get when you're a group that advocate for open borders, and then the country are full of people who hate you, and what do you go on? You get what you fucking deserve. What, did the string just die there for a moment? Maybe I was saying, maybe I was saying something too out there. I'm being shut down. Let me know how it's going. I think I'm back here. Pico Simen says, exacerbated, of course, now the Western ruling class have no legitimacy which to reverse course. That legitimacy went back away in the 80s. Am I back now? I think I'm back. I got shut down, but I'm back. Yes, I'm back. Paleoconservative Strange says Germany wants to do mass deportations, but only for those who criticize Israel. Now let's have a look at the status of the conflict. So the Israeli ground invasion of Gaza hasn't happened. So but there already the civilian casualties on the Palestinian side are piling up. So the Israeli Defense Force are continuing with airstrikes on Hamas targets, but there's mass civilian casualties. So there's been over 8,000 killed in the Gaza Strip. So that's more than the 1,400 Israelis who are killed. So obviously Hamas still has those 243 hostages. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's announced that the IDF is entering phase 2 of their destruction of Hamas. Because even though with more Gaza civilians dying, that's just going to make those in there. It's not just the Israeli-Arab conflict anymore. It's the Zionist-Muslim conflict, because obviously you have Iran, who support Hamas. They are not Arabs, they're Persians. And obviously Erdogan, he is supporting the plight of the Palestinians as well. He is obviously president of Turkey. He is a Turk. So it is Muslims from all over the world, no matter what their ethnicity, showing solidarity with fellow Muslims. I mean, in a way, you have to admire it, as you have to admire the Jews sticking up for their ethno-state. Though there is a growing number of Jewish activists against Zionism who are making their voice heard. Though remember, the new definition of anti-Semitism is being against Zionism. So there's Jews who are anti-Semitic as well. That doesn't make sense. Obviously, Hamas, they are wanting to increase the civilian casualties in Gaza because it helps with their recruitment and propaganda and gets them more support in the Arab world. How come Israel hasn't attacked Qatar yet, which is where most of the Hamas leadership is hiding? Or is that because Qatar, they are a Arabian Peninsula oil producing state, that they just get away with it? I mean, they're able to buy their way into the World Cup. Saudi Arabia is basically able to buy its allyship with the United States, can cut up journalists in embassies and get away with it. So when it comes to Western governments, if they wanted to go after all Islamic sponsors of terror, they should go after Qatar and Saudi Arabia. How come? Remember, after 9/11, most of the hijackers were Saudi. They should have attacked Saudi Arabia. And shouldn't Israel attack Qatar? Obviously, the bloodthirsty neocons in the United States, they want to start a war with Iran that has 80 million people in it, a lot more than the 13 million who live in the Israeli-Palestinian territories there. So it seems that, and we have that UN resolution that called for a ceasefire. I have to say, it's quite staggering that it's like Al Qaeda calling for a ceasefire after they attacked the United States. But yes, Hamas don't care about the residents of Gaza. All they care about is basically their political campaign. Now, over in the United States, that's where the queers for Palestine are the most present and the most hilarious. This was outside, I think, Grand Central Station. So there is now a Palestine Pride Progress flag. So there you go. Now, the United States Congress can once again write checks for Israel because they've got a now new speaker, Mike Johnson, who, well, apparently is America first. But yes, this was this was his first priority. He said when he took the speakership.
Extraordinary crisis right now, and the world needs us to be strong. They need us to remember our creed and our admonition. Turmoil and violence have rocked the Middle East and Eastern Europe. We all know it, and tensions continue to build in the Indo-Pacific. The country demands strong leadership of this body, and we must not waver. Our nation's greatest ally in the Middle East is under attack. The first bill that I'm going to bring to this floor in just a little while will be in support of our dear friend Israel, and we're overdue in getting that done. We're going to show not only Israel, but the entire world that the barbarism of Hamas that we have all seen play out on our television screens is wretched and wrong, and we're going to stand for the good in that conflict.
And back in the 2020 BLM summer of riots, Mike Johnson spoke about that because he has a adopted black son, that he believed that his adopted black son is treated differently and has a hindrance in life because of his skin color. This was him talking to PBS back in 2020.
And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my two 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son Jack has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But the reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise, my son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do about that?
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions. I think we're at a moment where we can begin to do more to form that more perfect union, as it says in the first line of the Constitution.
I'm surprised he was allowed to adopt a black child into his white family, because isn't that, I know that in the Australian context, if a white family adopts a Aboriginal child, that's considered stealing them, and you're culturally genociding them by raising them in a white family. So can he be accused of by just adopting a black son of culturally genociding African American culture? Also, John McCain, he adopted a black child as well, as did Madonna as well, from Africa as well. So did they all steal black children as well? Now, also, we had that horrific mass shooting in Maine. Sadly, it was a real life Halloween killer, except who killed 18 people, should I say, murdered. Although the truth, real life is actually more insane than a Stephen King novel. So this was the Maine Information Analysis Centre active shooter report put out when Robert Card was still at large, and so it's said that Card is a trained firearms instructor believed to be in the Army Reserve stationed outside of Saco, Maine. According to law enforcement, Card recently reported mental health issues, to include hearing voices and threats to shoot up the National Guard base in Saco, Maine. Card was also reported to have been committed to a mental health facility for 2 weeks during the summer of 2023 and subsequently released. Card was last known to be operating a Maine registration Outback with a black bumper sticker. The subject could be considered armed and dangerous. Caution should be used if contact is made with Card or the vehicle. And of course, this meme came out. Say the line, FBI, he was on our radar. Yay! Except this is not funny. You know how in Halloween movies, the killer escapes from a mental asylum and then goes on a killing rampage? In this case, they just let him out of the front door. They let the killer out the front door. Yeah, it's like in Halloween movies, Dr. Sidney Loomis just like opening the front door and letting Michael Myers out. Yeah, there you go. Go on. You can go back to Haddonfield. That's perfectly fine. I mean, and this is the main cause of most of these mass shootings: mental illness. And well, you saw the mental health system absolutely fail there. But of course, the real solution is, of course, gun control. That's always the solution. Never better mental health treatment. Now, in the 2024 US presidential campaign, we have had Mike Pence drop out from the Republican nomination. So running for president is no longer his concern. So it seems like he just wanted to run for president to flog his book, which is a pretty lame reason to waste lots of other people's money that he would have got from through donors. That seems like pretty dishonest if that was the case. Now, the effort to convict and imprison Trump over the RICO case in Georgia, which he and 18 others were charged with a criminal conspiracy to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Fulton County in Georgia. That legal case got a massive boost when pro-Trump lawyer Jenna Ellis pled guilty and read out a tearful apology to the state of Georgia.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to address the court. As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people.
She is such a good female fake crier. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did that. Yeah, she was good. I don't think I can match that. Paleoconservative Australian has said, "Hey Tim, have you covered the former Prime Minister's letters in support of Israel's right to self-defense and condemning Hamas?" Guess who wrote it? Mark Liebler. Well, it's actually his son, Jeremy Liebler, who's the president of the Zionist Federation of Australia. So it's also alleged that Josh Frydenberg helped draft it as well, though Malcolm Turnbull tonight has said, no, it was us former prime ministers who drafted and signed it ourselves. The only former prime minister not to sign it was Paul Keating. He also supports the Black Sovereign movement, supports a treaty process, believes that sovereignty was never ceded, and also, of course, is a CCP shill. So Paul Keating is in his 80s now, and yeah, he's pretty much less said about him, the better. Now, let's go back over to the UK and GB News. So you will remember they fired their host. I've just had a mental blank here. Who did they fire? Please, in that Lawrence Fox. That's it. I just had a mental blank there. They fired Lawrence Fox for saying that he wouldn't shag that feminist Ava Evans. They fired Calvin Robinson for refusing to go on air with Solidarity with him, and also the suspension of Dan Wootton, who was it was his program that Lawrence Fox made the remarks on. Here's the investigation into him is ongoing. So Dan Wootton tonight continues to be off the air. So obviously they've got a number of holes in their schedule. So they brought in Richard Tice, who is the leader of the Reform Party, which Nigel Farage, another GB News host, is part of. Lawrence Fox is, of course, leader of the Reclaim Party, which former Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen is a member of. He was kicked out because he questioned the COVID vaccines and made a statement about excess deaths to an empty House of Commons. But they have got a new host for GB News, who, well, decided to announce through a looked like they'd filmed it just on their mobile phone, but it was clearly, obviously, meant to look professional as well.
Hi folks, Boris Johnson here. I'm excited to say that I'm shortly going to be joining you on GB News, and I'm going to be giving this remarkable new TV channel my unvarnished views on everything from Russia, China, the war in Ukraine, how we meet all those challenges, to the huge opportunities that lie ahead for us, why I think our best days are yet to come, and why, on the whole, the people of the world want to see more global Britain, not less. So join me on GB News for some great British television.
So GB News, it originally stood for Great Britain News. Now under Boris Johnson is going to be Global Britain News. So Boris Johnson, he was the guy, the Prime Minister, who was too gutless to stand up to the sage scientist Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, and just went along with the lockdown narrative and also the vaccine passport system, almost locked down again during Christmas 2021. Having said all that, the Conservative Party still should not have gotten rid of him. It was a form of madness. I mean, obviously, his ratings tanked after Partygate, but he is a serial liar. But he was still the best, the best hope that the Conservative Party had at the next general election. Rishi Sunak is going to lose in a landslide, and certainly, well, Rishi Sunak and Sewell and Hersant, they've said, we stand with Israel. We're going to counter this new anti-Semitism. Have you looked at the people that you've imported in? They're not going to vote for you. You're just continuing to walk off the electoral cliff. All those Muslims who are protesting in London and all the other cities in support of Palestine, they're not going to vote for you, and they're multiplying, and there's more coming. And of course, Boris Johnson, he was complicit with that, even though, he said a funny thing about burqas. They look like, the women wearing burqas, they look like post boxes. That's so funny, even though there's still ordinary Brits being arrested and imprisoned for Islamophobic remarks. Now, the revolt amongst the remaining GB News presenters has already begun. Neil Oliver gave Boris Johnson the welcome to the GB News that he deserved.
I say again that dreadful things keep happening because dreadful people are in charge and suffer no consequences. I also say those dreadful people are invariably cowards, which partly explains why they do those dreadful things, or at least stand by while dreadful events unfold. Cowards are easy to spot, just as dreadful people are easy to spot, just as weak people are easy to spot, for they'll sacrifice, actively or passively, anyone and everyone they perceive as a threat to their position and burgeoning wealth. And so French Macron, Canadian Trudeau and Kiwi Ardern and more besides keep stepping backwards while simultaneously nudging their populations forwards into harm's way. Another British former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, locked down the country in lockstep with all the rest, leading to death and economic destruction on an unmeasured scale, and pushed medical products that were questionably neither safe nor effective, not even in terms of Big Pharma's own self-regulating policies, on millions of people, children included. He was the NATO bag carrier who scuppered hopes of an early peace deal in Ukraine. Like Blair, like the Clintons, like Obama and the rest, he's now on the luxury lecture circuit, trousering a fortune along the way. The wages of sin, as it turns out, come in 7 figures, or 8. Well, that's my guess.
We shall see how Boris Johnson's new show on GB News goes. I mean, obviously, you saw Neil Oliver there, a key GB News opinion host. Also, another one who I don't mind is Bev Turner. She was the one who mocked that meteorologist John Hammond for saying the 40-degree days, it's lethal weather. And she's saying, we want people to be happy about the weather. Why are you meteorologists such merchants of doom now? And Bev Turner has been a consistent voice against the COVID narrative, and also she managed to get a clothing company in October 2023. They were selling kids face masks. They've now removed it thanks to Bev Turner shaming them, so that's one that's a good win there, using her platform for good. Now, I mentioned the ordinary Brits still being arrested for alleged public order offences, hate speech. You remember that lesbian police officer who arrested that autistic girl for saying that she looked like a lesbian nana. Well, lesbian nana is back in West Yorkshire, and she is going to control these out of control pro-Palestine mobs. Watch out, lesbian Nana, as now she is known, has got she's got the pepper spray. Have I got it here? Have I got the footage here? No, I haven't got the footage. Oh, yes, I have. Yes.
What you doing, you little muppet? What are you doing, you? Yeah, have you seen what she just done to her, mate? Yeah. What's she doing here with butt? What's she doing with butt?
Looks like those other two male police officers have got the lesbian nana haircut as well. They've got the same short blonde hair that she does. Now, coming towards the end of the show. Now, obviously, we had the cancellation of Greta Thunberg in Israel last week, and because she said stand with Gaza, and obviously there were people like Dvir Abramovich who spun that a toy octopus was an anti-Semitic dog whistle. I'm not sure if you saw her on Twitter, this hilarious, I know that some of you don't like when I play AI because they like me to report straight news, but this is news because it's an hilarious viral fake AI of Greta talking about climate sustainable weapons and missiles in the Israel-Gaza conflict. I've got this here, haven't I? Let's hope that I do. Yes.
War is always bad, specifically for the planet. If we want to continue fighting battles like environmentally conscious humans, we must make the change to sustainable tanks and weaponry. There are so many new concepts for battery-powered fighter jets that can carry many more missiles, biodegradable missiles, of course. Something literally everybody can do to stop this nonsense is, for example, block the roads to gardens and farms so the plants don't get overrun by these heavy, heavy tanks. Hand grenades, very important. If you use hand grenades, please use vegan grenades. No animal should have to give their life for all this mayhem and chaos. They have a special sticker on them. You really can't miss them in the grenade market or wherever you buy them. Yeah, I cover all of this and more in my newest book, Vegan Wars.
I ordered Willy magazine.
Sneak link.
That was very funny. Now on to something that is both funny and based that was very real, is that I'm not sure if any of you have come across one of the pedo hunters, Alex Rosen. So he's a YouTube version of Chris Hansen to Catch the Predator. So he entraps pedos and perverts and wannabe child molesters who want to meet up with children and confronts them. He was able to infiltrate a rally which had Hillary Clinton as a headline speaker, and wanted to ask her about her husband's trips to Epstein Island.
Then you want somebody who's going to get up every day.
Hey, Hillary, why'd your husband visit Epstein Island 26 times?
Is this really necessary, guys? Is this really necessary? Is this really necessary, sir? Hey, is this necessary, officer? You guys are dragging a grown man out. Is this necessary? Seriously, come on. Hey, is this necessary, guys? Don't hit me, man. You guys are dragging somebody out in public. You're not welcome. Private event. You decide
why do you guys support like just endless government spending? I mean, she's giving more money to white people in Ukraine than you freaking idiots in Houston keep voting for her. Watch out. Endless money to Ukraine, endless money for Israel. She's not anti-establishment. You guys vote for the same shit over and over again. Same crime. It's gonna be like just like Chicago. You guys love this shit.
All right, you have a blessed day, sir. Have a nice day.
So that rally that he gate crashed there was Hillary was appearing in support for the Democrat nominee for Houston mayor, city of Houston in Texas, Sheila Jackson Reid. Now, in case you're quite black-pilled that the West has fallen and that London has fallen, fear not, because Jordan Peterson's ARC conference, which is sold out, is starting today. So this is his he's been promoting it. He promoted it on the Joe Rogan podcast, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, which acronym is ARC, and they're going to discuss so it's being sold as this major gathering of political, business, and cultural leaders will explore practical solutions to defining challenges in areas such as the future of the family, free enterprise, affordable energy, environmental stewardship, and moral governance. Over 1,000 people will be attending this sold-out invitational event. Over 100 parliamentarians across Europe, the UK, and Australia, as well as a delegation of congressional leaders from the USA. And of course, it's got such based people as one of our former prime ministers, John Howard, Scott Morrison, Tony Abbott. There is also from the UK, Kemi Badenoch and Michael Gove. I mean, they've been such guardians of UK values. And of course, the new speaker, Mike Johnson, is there, as well as Jordan Peterson. There is going to be Niall Ferguson. There is going to be, well, they're not all bad on that list, but basically it's another circle jerk conference where the intellectual dark web, I mean, they're the ones that rage against elites, like like Claire Lehman at Quillette, the trigonometry guys, Brendan O'Neill at Spike. I mean, they write these Ponzi articles and appear on their Ponzi podcast, raging against these elites. They're just a bunch of elites. They have disdain for grassroots working class activists. Who they say, oh, they're just as bad as the other side. Nothing will be achieved by this pompous press conference. They'll all discuss there and think that they're saving the world, and all feel good about themselves, and nothing will change. Now, I know that Topher Field from the Aussie Wire is over there, along with Rukshan Fernando, who is, I think, working for Topher there. He's on a different continent to Avi. Avi's still in Israel. I'm not sure, is Avi ever going to come back to Australia or go anywhere else? It's just been through non-stop Israel-Hamas war conflict at the moment. So, yes, that would be just a waste of time and money, in my opinion, going to cover that or attend that's just me. Now, I have to finish off with some very alarming news that COVID is back in Australia. Yes, we're in a new wave, and so the COVID bedwetters, such as Mandy Squires at the Herald Sun and Neil Mitchell at 3AW, they are alarmed and alert, and so they jumped upon this health alert put out by our Victoria's acting chief health officer, Dr. Christine McGrath. And so the key message is that COVID transmission is increasing. And this is because immunity from infection and vaccination wanes with time. And it's linked to multiple variants. And we've got to make sure that those at greatest risk are supported to reduce their risk, such as people aged over 65, people with a disability, chronic medical condition, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They say if the best way to prevent those you love from getting COVID is to protect yourself. If you don't get COVID, you can't spread COVID. So that's basically a COVID zero message, that you should still basically live as a hermit. And so still say wear a mask, get vaccinated, let fresh airing. What if it's snowing and raining? Get tested. Stay at home if you have COVID-19, and talk to your doctor. So yes, still those the old spiel there. Though I will tomorrow recommend that you all wear a mask, because it's Halloween. It's the only day of the year where I believe it is socially acceptable to wear a mask, and you should mask off. Tomorrow night on The Theorists, I'll certainly be wearing a mask. The Theorists with myself and Andy Nolch is back tomorrow night. After a fortnight off, myself and Andy Nolch is back. We'll be back on the Theorists YouTube channel, as well as Odyssey and Rumble. We did get a strike for the last Theorist episodes that we did, where we had our special guest Teresa Van Lyshout. That is available on the Theorist YouTube. It's on Andy Nolch's BitChute, and also on the Theorist, Rumble, and Odyssey. So I put the link to the YouTube channel, which we'll be back on tomorrow night, to make sure with all of our Unshackled channels you subscribe, give a thumbs up, comment below, and click the bell to allow for notifications. Remember, if you want to support our Unshackled productions, support our work. I know that I sound like Avi Yemeni when I do this, but I don't say it every 5 minutes like he does. So we have bronze membership, $5 per month, silver $10 per month, gold $25 per month, platinum $50 per month, theunshackled.net/membership. I will see you all tomorrow night where I'll have a new Halloween costume for Halloween night. Thank you all for watching Tim's News Explosion on this Halloween Eve special. Check out the unshackled.net for all of our productions archive and our articles as well. We will see you all tomorrow night. And I should also mention that another reason to get vaccinated is because vampires only drink pure blood. They don't like blood that has had vaccines in it. So this blood that I'm drinking, it has been drained from a pure blood. So I shall drink up now, and I will see you all again soon. Good night, everybody. Don't let the bed bugs bite or the bats. Good night. Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News